Welcome back, listeners, to the Brighter Side of Blue. I'm Danny.
I'm Tommy.
I'm JJ.
Hey, as promised, we have a special show tonight. We never thought we'd get into some cold case action, but this one kind of tweaked our interest, and we're going to put the power of the Brighter Side of Blue behind it and see if we can dig some stuff up.
Avid listener. One of our best fans, and so it means something to us. And JJ,
I'm not sure
trying to hook this up.
Fan or not?
Yeah,
she does listen to it.
We have Melissa Daus with us, and Melissa is the niece of Nancy Brannon. Know that name, Nancy Brannon, 34-year-old, missing for 37 years. Back in 1986 on November 24th. Not anything heard from her, no closure for the family. And Melissa came on as a fan of our show, and she's hoping we can get the word out there and, get some muscle behind this. I mean, it's a rough time for you, Melissa. Thanks for showing up. We just got through Thanksgiving, and I imagine Thanksgiving's a rough time of year for you and your family.
Yes, very. Thanks for having me. It's a really hard time for our family. It's the week she disappeared in 1986. And, we didn't celebrate that holiday for, God, as long as I can remember.
Wow.
Where was she when she went missing?
So she had met some friends at a bar in the city. It was called Halftime Saloon on Delore. And she left at a decent hour, like 10:30, 11, and went straight home. And we know she made it home because her car was in her parking lot of her apartment complex. And that's all we know. Someone who lived in her apartment complex found her purse on the ground the next morning and turned it into the apartment complex manager, who then contacted my grandfather, who then they contacted the authorities.
Where was that? What?
Oh, it was in Shrewsbury, right on Watson Road.
Okay. So Shrewsbury PD took this case 37 years ago, and
Correct.
We're trying to move it forward a little bit.
Correct. Yes.
So tell us about your aunt a little bit.
She was single, never married, no kids, very successful. She was in surgical equipment sales, so she sat through surgeries and things like that. And she was taking classes at the community college to get her master's in business. And she was a social person. She probably went to happy hours 2 or 3 times a week. Again, she,
Medical sales.
Right.
That's kind of what they do.
Yeah.
Kind of like these guys down here.
Right.
She was the fun aunt, right?
She really was. She was the fun aunt. We had sleepovers there. My sister's 5 years older, so my sister had more time with her than I did. But those are the memories I have of her. We were a really close family.
That's one of the things that struck me from an article that was written about this was how you found out in that day when you were 7 years old, and you take it from there.
Yeah, it's crazy. I couldn't tell you what I had for dinner last night, but I can remember that day. I was at school. I didn't feel well, and so they called my mom to come pick me up. Well, my mom and dad both worked full time. Again, back then there weren't cell phones, and grandparents were always home, so you didn't call them. You just showed up. Right. So she was like, "I'm going to drop you off there and go back to work," and when she went to drop me off there, 2 detectives had showed up at the same time. And so we kind of sat there listening to them say everything that they found.
Like just the purse was there,
right?
But we can't find them.
And they, they got into her apartment. Her bed was made. The clothes that she was wearing the night before were not found in her apartment, so they assume she never made it inside.
And that's where it stopped.
And that's where it stopped. That's it.
It's a cold case of cold cases.
But then, so obviously her siblings, which is your father, and then your father has a sister?
There's 6 of them. He's the only boy, so
Okay.
1 boy, 5 girls.
And they weren't satisfied, so they started
Correct.
digging themselves. And
Correct.
what are some of the things that they found out as they did pretty much their own investigation over the last 30 years?
They found out from a coworker of hers that she had been seeing another coworker, a gentleman who was married at the time and building a house with his wife. So, he's obviously not at the end of his marriage. And that's really all we know about him. But they had been dating for quite a while.
I don't want to get too deep in it, but you said something about birth control pills.
So one thing they found in her purse was an empty birth control pack from October. This was the end of November, so November 24th. So that kind of always stood out to us. I thought, did she find out she was pregnant and tell him? And the detective for Shrewsbury said, no, I don't think that's an option. Her November birth control was picked up the day she went missing. It was found in her car, unopened. Well, the guy she was seeing was a pharmacist. I don't know if that was put in there. I think it's odd. It was picked up the same day she disappeared.
Now, you've done a bunch of investigating on your own, and you found some things out so far that the private investigator before you and Shrewsbury didn't even know. And now, what have you discovered, or what have you unveiled or found interesting that no one's gone down this path and looked into? Is there?
I think, to me, he's probably the prime suspect, if not the only suspect they have. I mean, he's the only one that could benefit from her disappearing.
And you learned that through, I don't know how you learned this, but they never questioned him. He had an alibi, and they believed his alibi. And
Yeah,
that's as far as they went.
They said, were you having an affair with Nancy? And he denied it. And they said, where were you the night of her disappearance? And he said, I was with my wife. And that was it. It was end of discussion. He was never, they said they gave a handful of lie detector tests. He was never one of them that they gave
and his
one
wife
to.
verified his.
And his wife verified his alibi.
So they go and verify. A wife gets to verify.
Apparently in
And they're good with it.
1986,
And they're
that
good
was
with
it.
that they were good with that.
That's insane.
Yeah.
So why the new? I shouldn't say that. But why are you here today? And is there new energy around this, or is it just because every November it's just a kick in the?
Every November is really hard. But about 7 years ago, around her 30th anniversary of her disappearance, I reached out to Shrewsbury and asked if they would put this in the media. Yeah, it was just a good time to kind of say, hey, it's been 30 years, if anyone knows anything. And I was told by Shrewsbury there's no new evidence, there are no new leads, there's nothing new to report. So when I was handed a report from my aunt back in 2019, I knew at that point I'm not going to get help from them. I need to do this on my own. I need to get this out there. And I thought, I'm going to reach out to Dateline. At least it's national.
Yeah.
And it'll get out there. And it took them 4 years to respond back. They did respond right away, but they were like, we'll add you to the list.
Okay.
And so then early November of this year, they reached out and they said, we want to feature her. And I thought, oh my God. And she's like, and we want to put it out there the week of her anniversary. And I thought, okay, let's do it. And it just hasn't stopped since.
Now they're looking for more evidence to take it even further for.
So it will never be an episode like on TV. And she said, we hope by putting this article out there, it will lead to something. And if it does, we will then do a story on it.
So that's your goal, and you're running with it.
That's my goal.
I think I asked you this earlier, but in one word, what would you say you wanted out of this?
Just closure.
Yeah.
And
I think
I don't even need to know logistics. We just want to find her.
Right. Yeah.
And one of the things, and you've reached out to our podcast, and we really appreciate it. And just to let the listeners know, we are trying to do the best we can. And JJ, what did you do? You tell people what you did.
No, she reached out to me and asked me if any of us knew a detective that would take this case up. And we all know a very good veteran detective that does cold cases. And I reached out to him, and he's been talking with Melissa, and he's running with it, I think. And he's just in one day, he came up with all kinds of different things that I didn't, she didn't know, I believe. And I think we got the right guy that's going to do this cold case for her.
So I heard Melissa, JJ was telling me that when you guys were on the way down there, he described the detective.
Yes.
And would you say that he looks exactly like somebody that you'd want on this case?
To a T. Absolutely.
Cigar in his mouth, the glasses on his nose.
Yep.
And
he's exactly what I
It's
pictured.
exactly what she said when we got in the
And,
car on the way home. She said, you nailed him.
Yes.
and you can just tell that he's good, can't
He's
you?
just calm, cool, and collected.
He's smart as a
Yeah.
whip, and he had a cigar on cue in his mouth,
did.
chewing on it, and we sat at the table like this across from him, and he went through the file and asked pointed questions, and I'm like, wow, he is good. So.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, if any of the listeners, if any of this strikes any kind of memory, and I don't care how small, or if you think it's irrelevant, I mean, reach out to us, and we're going to get it to our guy, and we're going to shake the trees.
And
on
what was
this
the
thing.
name of the bar again? Because a lot of
She
people.
was at Halftime Saloon.
Halftime Saloon.
I
Halftime
don't
Saloon, right
think
by
it
on
exists.
Delore by
Yeah.
St. Mary's.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes, Grand and
Yep.
Delore.
I've been in there. You've been in there. We've all been in there.
Yeah, I've been in there.
Yep.
So what day of the week was it?
I think it was a Monday night because she should have been at work the next day. That was another thing. She didn't show up to work. And some of the coworkers that were at the bar with her on Tuesday night, or Monday night, I'm sorry, they said there was nothing out of sorts. Like it was like everyone they knew in the bar. People saw her walk to her car. She wasn't followed as far as they know. And that was it. There's a lot of, a couple people I talked to just said they have a lot of regret, her leaving by herself. They feel bad. My other aunt, I just found this out today. My other aunt was supposed to go out with her that night. And normally she was a younger sister of hers. And if they went out, she would have stayed at her place. And at the last minute, she made other
Oh, my
arrangements.
God.
Yeah.
So that aunt is no longer alive. She passed away of cancer, but I can't imagine the guilt she lived
Right.
the rest of her life knowing that she should have been out with her that night and she chose not to.
Well, that leads me into something I was going to say is we spoke a little bit before the show. Hey, Nancy Brannon is far from the only victim in this. I mean, this changed your entire life and made a lot of victims inside your family. Could you talk a little bit about how it affected your being raised?
It really did. There was just this fear of if it can happen to someone who's 34 years old, it can happen to a teenager or a child. So my dad just lived in this fear of something always happening to us. And, we didn't go to overnight camps. I don't think I ever went to a sleepover until I was in high school. And again, cell phones didn't exist. You can't track your kids like you can now. So we just lived in a different world. And at that time, we lived in a very fearful world. My sister and I, we didn't go away to college because we just knew my dad couldn't handle that.
Right.
Wow.
Yeah.
So it changed your life completely.
I think
Completely.
too, one of the things that is how did you get you just didn't start it on your own. This has been going on for a while with your dad and,
Yeah.
and his siblings.
Yeah.
And they've been really following this too.
Yeah.
And then how did they pass it off to you?
So again, going back to 2019, it was Thanksgiving, and my other aunt, Kathy, she just out of the blue passed us this file, and she said, "I'm going to put this in yours and Lindsay is my cousin. I'm going to put this in your hands. This is solvable. It will be solved in your lifetime, but we're getting older, and we just don't know if it's going to happen in our lifetime." And so now that's become our goal. Like, okay, let's solve this while they're still alive. My dad turned 70 this summer. I don't know how long he's going to live, but I hope he lives long enough to find out what happened to her.
Because the grandparents didn't.
They did not.
Yeah,
No,
that's
it
another
destroyed them.
Tragedy
Yeah.
of this.
Right. So many victims come from something like this.
Yeah.
And again, I don't know what the probability is, but as long as we can get as much information out there as we possibly can,
Exactly.
you never know where it's going to lead.
Exactly. I've had people reach out just the other day. I lived in Shrewsbury when this happened. I remember this, and I thought, okay, this is exactly what we're doing it for,
Right.
to get people to contact us.
Absolutely. And, if anybody doesn't know who to contact, we're not going to give out who we've given this information to at this point. But you can email us, and you're on Facebook too,
I am.
Melissa.
Yeah.
And if anybody has anything to add, or everybody likes to be a detective every once in a while, and this is this is everybody's chance, right?
Yeah, exactly.
If you email us or you get a hold of any of us on our social medias, including Melissa, any information's good information, right?
Anything helps.
You don't know what's going to turn it over. You don't know what's going to be the magic nugget that turns this case.
Absolutely.
Well, none of us knew that story until a couple days ago, and a lot of our friends and people we deal with are about the same age of what Nancy would be right now. So we're hoping that somebody it jogs their memory. A lot of police officers used to go to halftime, and maybe somebody was there that night. Maybe somebody saw something, that didn't know that they saw something relevant. So that's what we're trying to do too, is just get it out there and jog somebody's memory, and maybe they can point us in the right direction.
Now, you might not know the answer to this, but is anything, since you've given this file by your father and your aunt, is anything new to you? Have you learned anything new since your little investigation?
I mean, just, the name of the gentleman that she was apparently seeing, and he was having an affair with her, his name is not even listed in the report that we were given. So I've learned of his name as of 5 days ago.
And where he lives?
Myrtle Beach. And he's moved, I think, to 5 different states.
And did you know that he had built a house?
He was building a house at the time of her disappearance with his wife, who was also a pharmacist. They
So
were
did you
both
learn
pharmacists.
that with your investigation? Is
Yes.
That, okay.
Yes.
So you're getting some tidbits.
I feel like everything I'm getting is what we're doing on our own and not from what I was hoping was the case file that I have not been given.
Well, you need to get that case file.
I'm trying really hard.
Well, good luck. I hope after maybe the pressure of Channel 4 interviewing you and us doing their podcast, more the Channel 4 is interviewing you, but maybe they'll get the pressure and you'll get what you need. And hopefully the detective that the cold case detective we introduced you to, maybe he can pull something up.
Yeah.
But he's got
So
some
I
contacts, that's for sure.
Yeah.
And we do know people that listen to the show that are influential, so hopefully they can help get that report
Move the
to you
needle.
and
Actually,
moving it forward.
she's friends with Major Benoist, and he's been making some phone calls for her, I know.
Yeah, he called me again. I feel like every day over these past 2 weeks, I get something new. And keep in mind, everything I'm hearing now is new to me. It may not be new to my dad, who's been around on this case for 37 years, but it's
Right.
new to me. And Pierre called me, and he's like, I just saw the article, and your aunt was best friends with my sister. My sister was actually interviewed twice
That's neat.
when she disappeared. So I thought, oh my God, it's just connecting the dots between
Well,
Jim
and again,
and-
it's something that gives you purpose and it
For
makes you
sure.
feel good that people actually care, that you're reaching out there and you're getting so much information and feedback from people.
Yes.
That it,
Have you
again, it's all about the closure, right? And that helps you get to that point. That,
Exactly.
That when you have done everything you can, at least you know that.
Exactly. And I feel like I've gotten a lot of support of just from all you guys and people who I've talked to that are like, we're going to keep looking into this. So
Awesome.
And wasn't there a car? Somebody mentioned a car that might have been
So-
seen in the parking lot with where your aunt lives.
yes. So next to her apartment complex was a restaurant called Marinati's. I think it had been there a long time. It's no longer there now. But she was a bartender or waitress, and she was leaving, and it was around 11:30, which would have been the exact time Nancy would have been getting home shortly after that. And there was a car running, backed in a parking space in the parking lot of her apartment complex, just sitting there. She said it was like he was waiting for something. She described it as a Ford. I think, did she say it was like a 1974 Ford, which I thought was random.
Yes.
But maybe it was a certain style. I don't know. And that,
Pinto?
yeah.
No.
But that's truly the only witness. If I call it a witness, that's really all we have.
What about her circle of friends? Have you talked to many of them? Have you gotten...
I've talked to just 2. And, the 2 I talked to actually didn't know anything about
The affair?
But again, I think my aunt was probably maybe ashamed of it. So that's not something she was going to brag
Right.
to her
Right.
sisters or even some of her close friends. I think the only people that knew were coworkers, and it's maybe because they witnessed it,
Right.
It wasn't something she was going around and bringing him in
Yeah,
public.
that's a start.
It'd be nice to find somebody that knew this man and kind
Yes.
of gave you a little description
Or
of what he
the
was
wife.
like.
Or the wife.
Because the wife might have said some animosity things along the way too.
Yeah.
Because if they're all working in the same spot, you never know.
Well, if she
Yeah.
stood up for him and denied and gave him an alibi, to me,
Yeah.
that's crazy. And then they just took the. I just understand why they accepted that as an excuse. And okay,
Here we go. We're all doing the gumshoe thing right now. Just throwing out speculation.
Yeah,
I know
I'm
she
sitting there
feels the
saying-
same way. I know she feels the same way.
Well, something's
So-
going to turn it over. But I mean, I heard you talking to Lauren Traeger from Channel 4 earlier, and Lauren mentioned this is a perfect example of generational trauma. Grandpa, dad, aunt, niece, and is there anybody? I mean, who else is it affected?
Well, it's going
You're
to
the
probably
niece.
the way she's become a mother. She's probably. I'm not saying I have no idea what kind of mother you are. I know you're a good mother.
I hope
but
I'm
I'm
good.
sure you worry. It affects you
I
how you
do.
raise your kids, and you probably worry
Yeah.
about them every single day when you're not.
And do your kids
outside.
know about this?
They do. And again, it's one of those things where I don't want to scare them into fearing everything in life, but I've always talked about her with them. And, if my son doesn't pick up his phone when he's somewhere, he's 14, and I'm like, you have to understand, if I don't hear from you, I immediately think the worst. I don't care if I can see you on Life 360. I don't care if I just talked to you 30 minutes ago. So they've always known about my aunt. She's always, we have pictures of her, ornaments of her on our tree. So I think they get it. I think they get that.
Right.
Don't scare mom. Like let's
Yeah.
let's pick up the
Because
phone.
if Nancy
when-
had Life 360,
Right.
would have shown her at home.
Exactly. And my daughter's leaving for college next year, so
Yeah.
I'm going to, I don't know how I'm going to get through that,
No.
but I'm going to try.
A little give and take from both sides, right?
Exactly.
As long as she understands and then you understand a little
Exactly.
bit, and maybe you meet in the middle somewhere.
Exactly. And I
Wow.
got to stop watching Dateline because I think that's just like putting the
Until it's-
fear of
yeah,
me. And
yeah.
yeah.
Wow.
Well, you definitely have a career in PI. When I retire,
Exactly.
you and I can become PIs together.
I feel like we can solve anything, right?
Let's solve
Let's start with this
first.
one.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. We'll
Yes,
start with this.
please.
Melissa, thank you so much and for coming on the show. And I promise we're going to put some horsepower behind this. And see
We're going
what
to
we
get this
can
out
do.
there immediately, and hopefully we can keep going with this,
Is there-
and bring you back on when we get
Thank
stuff.
you so
Progress
much for having
reports.
me. I appreciate it.
No.
Anything else you want to end with, or no? You're good.
I'm good. Yeah.
All right. Wow.
That was incredible.
She is a incredible interviewer. She did a great job.
And
Yep.
37 years, she's still got the fire in her belly to find
Yeah,
out
you
what
think
happened
she's
to
got
her
a little-
aunt, Nancy
little-
Brannon.
Think she had a little passion on this case?
Yeah, she does. And we have to help her with this. I think we have the wheels in motion to do that, too.
Yeah. Well, it's just like Tom said. It just affected, and you said, it just affected her whole life. 7 years
Generational
old,
trauma.
it changed her life forever, and it's probably how she raises her kids, and every day she lives her life.
Well, not just her, it's just her whole family.
Right,
That's
exactly.
how it's affected.
Oh man, it's
Her
it's
grandpa
sad.
and grandma went to their grave not knowing.
How
what
sad
happened
is
to their
that?
Granddaughter.
That is sad, man.
And if we can do anything, if our listeners remember anything from the Halftime Saloon to the Shrewsbury apartment where she lived on Watson, the Ford, the Marinottis, anything, just reach out to somebody. Reach out to us, reach out to her, reach out to somebody and let them know that this is, I saw something that night and it's something looked suspicious.
Exactly, Tommy. And to our brothers in blue out in Shrewsbury, hey, none of you guys were there when this went down.
No.
This is not about you. This is
Not
about
on them.
this family. It's not on you.
100%.
So join the team and come
Right.
out and talk on the podcast, and let's get this thing rolling. You got the current file, and that starts there, and let's get
Right.
this thing solved.
No doubt.
I tell you that if, I'm not sure why we ever started this podcast, but if this gets solved, I'll have an answer.
Yeah, but it better get solved quick because you need to be gone.
You may quit again
I quit
soon.
once. If you want
may
to fire
quit
me now,
again
that's
soon.
fine.
He can become a listener. And
Believe me, I got a lot of shit on my plate. If you guys don't
Jimmy's
let
not
me
a
go,
listener.
I think Woody,
Jimmy's gone from co-host to listener.
Woody's in the house, so Woody can take my spot.
Right.
Woody, come on, brother, let's switch.
Yeah, jeez. Oh my God. No, that's it. Our first cold case.
First one, you never know if we're successful. Now, we're not going to take on any more until we're completely successful on this one. We do not want to become.
We're not looking to be
Well,
Dateline, but we're looking for
this-
Dateline to come and help
But this
us
is
out.
local.
This is personal. I
Local. Is this
from
know
around here?
Melissa.
Yep.
She reached out to me. Melissa is a personal, so we're not taking anybody we don't know.
Right. Let's start with that.
Yeah, there's enough places out there.
She's
Cold
tremendous.
case.
She's a tremendous fan too. She likes she's the first like on everything that producer John puts out on Facebook. Is that
She beats my
correct,
mom.
Producer John?
She's quicker than my mom.
Your mom stopped listening to us about to podcasting.
Well, the episode that I don't need to talk about the episode she quit listening.
When I was cursing,
Yeah.
I told you I apologized to her.
Yeah, well, you have to meet her.
I'm going to have to.
You have to say it face to face. She's offended.
I'm
She's
so-
not.
That'll be our
love her.
first bonus podcast. We're not going to put that out on like the Friday or the Mondays that we usually do. We're going to put that out by itself, and hopefully we can continue to follow up on it and let everybody know what's going on. And I think that we hooked her up with one of the best detectives that we could have possibly hooked her up
Absolutely.
with in the area.
He's already making progress. He's already turning stones.
Yep.
So whoever did this knows about it. Whoever did it should feel very uncomfortable.
Well, he was supposed to be here tonight. I think he got a lead and just couldn't leave it.
That's
So
what it was.
he's working on it now.
You got a lead.
That's
it.
awesome.
That.
So anyway, thank you all listeners. Thank you. Keep coming
Yep.
back. Keep telling
we'll be
your
back
people.
with our regular episode next.
Your people are our people. Peace.
Peace.
Peace.